Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. So I want this thing to become a daily rider, and part of that is starting without a portable CDI box. I'm not quite sure why the Spark gave up, but there is some hacking and loss here. So let me show you the simplest way I've found to figure out what's wrong and how to fix it. What you want to do is find this CDI box, that square box, right? There you go. Look, a CDI box. There you are. So you want to find that, and you want to take a look at the connector on there, make sure it's plugged in, make sure all your other wires are plugged in, right? And I still got no love or joy or spark. So next thing I do, I just unplug this, and you want to do it carefully. You know, after, I don't know, 35, 40 years, these things become crispy. Ooh, that's mighty ugly right there. Spark much? Maybe not. Obviously that should get cleaned. Now I've done a couple of things in this video. Obviously I cleaned the connector up a little bit. And if you look at the back of the plug, right here in this corner, you could see a green wire, which is ground, and you could see I put the multimeter lead into that. So no matter what, if your engine doesn't have a good ground, right, if this wire harness isn't hooked to the engine well, and if it isn't hooked to the frame well, right, the power that comes out of the flywheel, right, and through the red and black wire here, right, not all that power goes to the CDI. So you really want the engine hooked up well to the frame, to the wire harness, to the spark coil, right? You got to make sure you got really good ground. So right now I have this plugged into the ground where the CDI would be getting it from, and I'm going to check around to see that everything is hooked up. I'm going to set up the camera so you guys could watch the meter as I do this, and let's get started. So here you guys go. You're looking right at the meter, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn the meter on, and I'm going to turn it to the 200 ohm range, right, because I'm looking to see that everything is hooked to ground. So one lead where the CDI would see ground, and now I'm checking to the frame, and I'm scraping on the frame, right? I don't know if you guys can see my hand, but I'm not getting anything. Here's the lead to the motor, about 2.2 ohms, which isn't crazy great, but I have no connection to the frame. The problem with this kind of thing is I swapped the motor out, and the ignition system worked before I swapped the motor. And now that after I swapped the motor, the frame and the motor do not have a good connection. So I'm going to take a few minutes. I already prepared a wire here, and I'm going to hook that up, and then we'll try it again. Alright, so I ran a wire from the motor to the frame, and I think you guys could see it there, and it also hits the wire harness, right, because that's where the ground wire hooks to the wire harness and to the coil and everything else. So now when I touch this, right, you're back at 2.1, so there is a little resistance there, but not too bad. Now when I also go between the wire harness and the motor, right, 2.1. So I have a halfway decent ground. That makes me a little happier. Now I'm going to check the rest of the connections in the wire harness just to make sure they're hooked up and to make sure the motor's not turned off. So let's go through those one at a time. Now my leads are between ground and the yellow and black. The yellow and black is the primary to the spark coil. And you see another 2.3. What you're actually looking at is somewhere around 0.1 ohms, which is what the primary of the spark coil should be. Now this is to the black and red. The black and red goes to your stator coil, the coil that powers the CDI. And you're seeing about 188 ohms. I don't know if you guys recalled yesterday when I probed the motor directly, but it was about that also, maybe more like 186, so a couple of ohms worth of resistance due to the wire harness. And the last wire we're checking is that blue and yellow, which goes to the pulse generator. And you see 30.6. Yesterday it was like 28, 29, so the number we had yesterday plus a couple of ohms due to the wire harness. So according to this, I think what happened is when I swapped the motor out, or by not putting those front plates on yet, whatever, I really didn't have good continuity between the motor and the frame, and by adding that extra wire, we now do. The last thing I have to check is to turn this guy off. The black wire with the white stripe, you short that to ground. So I want to check that one and make sure that it's not shorted to ground, because if it's shorted to ground, the switch is off. And obviously I can mess with the switch to make sure when I do turn it off, it actually shuts the motor down. So that's the last measurement you need to take. To make this thing run, when the on and off switch is in the on position, you should be looking at an open circuit. And if I move it to the right, you can see it goes basically to a short, back to center, and to the left, I get back to my short condition. So not only is the on and off switch not turning it off, right? It is not turning it off when it's centered, but it works in both directions. So if this thing goes into a runaway state, I should be able to just flip the switch and save myself. So let's give this thing a cold start. Choke. I normally close it to keep the bugs out. Ignition is on. I'm not going to give it the Harvey hop. We're just going to give it a quick pull. It actually seems to run a little better on the OEM ignition. Kind of makes sense, right? The more stuff you add, the more trouble you get into. But once again, she sounds really healthy. So, looks like we fixed it. By the way, you know, when you have wires floating around, I want to get the headlight hooked up again, so I am going to have to mess with this stuff. You really kind of want to be careful that you tape them up and all. You don't want to burn out your power coil, the stator coil that runs your headlight, or the other one for that matter. Hence the tape over here. When you're bringing one of these things back from the very dead, and this one was just about there, though it did run, right, we got no oil spots on the ground. It starts easily now. The shifter, though it's not quite perfect, is on there as it should be. I'm going to bend it to be a little bit more of a happy place, right? I can slide the gas tank on now. The gas tank is right there. I think you guys can see it through the plastic. So that could go on now. The gas tank's actually halfway decent clean on the inside. So we'll put that on there, an air filter and all. And once again, the goal is not beauty for this thing, but just turn it into a practical everyday rider. One you could walk up to. If it starts on the first pull, all the better, right? Give it some throttle and go. What could not be better than that? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video here. I want to thank you all for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. I hope this fixes one for somebody, hopefully. If not, just gives you guys a little bit more of an idea how these ignition systems work. Remember, feet down, heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.